Good day, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So, we'll continue from where we stopped in the previous video. In today's video, we are going to measure substructural work using a faster means instead of using the direct tool or the direct software tool. So, this time around, we will be using plugin for our measurement. So, as you can see here, at the top right corner of the software, what I have here is the measurement plugin. I have a lot of plugin here, but I'll be using this particular one in this video. Okay, so my plugin here divided into three main folder: substructure, superstructure, and staircase. Substructure, superstructure, and staircase. So let me expand this so we'll see the content of our substructure folder. So as you can see, we have two subfolders under substructure. I have plugin for strip and pad foundation and another plugin for raft foundation. The plan we are working with here, we have two types of foundation here on this plan, which is the strip and the pad foundation. So the strip foundation is the normal foundation for bungalow, but when you now have story building, that means there's need to introduce the other type of foundation, which is the pad foundation. Okay, so I'm going to remeasure what we measured in our previous video using the plugin. One beautiful thing about using plugin for measurement is that if you measure a particular item, the plugin will automatically measure some other items that are related to that item you measure. Take for instance, if I should measure my strip foundation now, the plugin will automatically measure some other items like support surface of excavation, concrete in foundation, blinding, and some other related item, backfilling too. While if I should measure my pit foundation, it will automatically measure concrete in column base, and I'll be able to measure reinforcement in column base too, alongside the formwork. So using the plugin for measurement is way more faster than using the tools, the software tools. So let's measure. Okay, we've measured side clearance. I'm not going to measure that again. Or should I? Okay, let's measure the whole thing again, right from the beginning, using plugin this time around. Okay, let me switch to my site plan. Okay, this is my site plan here. So with this tool here, with this particular plugin here, I can actually measure my site clearance using this, and it will measure this thing alongside the disposer alongside the site clearance. Let's move straight to excavation. Okay, so as you can see here, the next plugin here is our excavation plugin. This plugin here is meant for strip foundation, not pad. So let me activate this plugin. To activate the plugin, what you do is you click on the green icon in front of that plugin to activate. The way you click on the green button in front of your tools to activate them. Okay, so as you can see here now, the plugin is asking for two values: the width of our foundation and the depth. So after inputting the width and the depth, we are going to trace the gaps on this plan. So from our previous video, the width of our foundation is the conventional width, which is 0.675, while the depth, I think the depth is 0.52. Yes, 0.52. That will also be under our substructure folder. So after inputting the width and the depth, you click on OK to fully activate the plugin. So let's measure from this point down to this point. Then you click on N to continue from this point to this point. N, and the last part, which is from this point to this point. So at this point now I'm going to click on escape. I want to end my measurements here. Escape. So let's check our takeoff summary. So we'll see what we've measured so far. Okay. So our total volume of excavated soil here is 2.7 using the plugin. And from our previous video, our excavation is also 2.73. So you can see that they are both the same. The values are the same. So like I said the other time, that once you measure a particular item using the plugin will automatically measure some other item for you. So we've measured our trench excavation here, and we have some other items here under our trench excavation. We have support of excavation measured, backfilling measured, leveling and compacting automatically measured. The next value here, so the next item here is blinding to trench measured automatically. You can also click on this to change the thickness. The configured thickness here is 50 mm, which is the conventional thickness for blinding. So if your blinding is more than 50 mm or lesser than 50 mm, you can click on blinding here, then you click on thickness. So with that, you'll be able to edit. Okay. So the next item here is our concrete in foundation. So if we click on that, we'll have this. So here we're going to input the thickness of our foundation footing. Let's check the thickness from the drawing. So from this drawing, the thickness of our foundation footing, according to this section, is 270 mm. 270 mm. So I'm going to input that here. Double click, and I'll input 0.27 and then click on OK. So we have our concrete in foundation. The next and the last item under our excavation plugin here is block in foundation. Block in foundation. I'm not going to use that value. I'm not going to use that value. I'm not going to use this particular plugin here, because in actual sense, our block wall will be from this point to this point. Yeah, not just from this point to this point, because whatever item that is measured under excavation will make use of the gap of our excavation, which is from this point to this point. So in the real sense, the block wall will be from this point, from this starter column, not from the beginning of the column base, from the starter column to this other starter column. So I will measure that separately. Okay, let's measure our block in foundation before we proceed to pit excavation. So in measuring block in foundation, we are going to make use of our linear tool for that. We use linear tool. So we'll rename this block work in foundation. Block in foundation, and the gap will be from this point down to this point. Click on N, from this point down to this point, and from this point down to this point. So I'll end my measurements here by clicking on escape. Okay, so what I have here is just the gap from this point down to that point. What I have here is the gap, and as we all know, block wall is measured in meter square, not meter. So what's left here is the height of the block wall. Let's check that out from our foundation section. So this from the foundation section, this is the block wall in foundation. It's from this point, which is the top of our footing, to the base of the oversized concrete, from this point down to this point. Let's check out that dimension with the aid of our dimension tool. From this point down to this point, that's 0.896, approximately 0.9. So the height of our block wall in foundation is 0.9. The next one we're going to do now is to change this particular figure here from linear meter to meter square. And how do we do that? You double click on this, then you click on advance. This is the measured gap. You click on that, multiply by 0.9, which is the height of the wall in foundation. Then we change the unit from meter to meter square. Then okay. So with that, we are done with everything that have to do with strip foundation. The next part now is the measurement of pad foundation. We are going to measure that with the aid of our plugin tool. Let me expand this. Okay. So the next folder under our strip and pad foundation here is meant for pit excavation slash columns dot column base. So let's check the content of that folder. We have a plugin here. Okay. So this is a plugin for pit excavation. What's the depth of our excavation? From the last video, I can't recall. Let's cross check. Okay, the depth of our pit excavation is 0.85. 0.85. Number of column bays. We have 3 different sizes of column base here. We have column base type 1, column base type 2, and column base type 3. Our column base type 1 is 1 meter by 1 meter, and the thickness is 250. The number of that column base is 6. So we're going to input 6 here as the number of column base. Then let's rename this as Let's add BT1 to this. BT1. Long side, since our column base is 1 meter by 1 meter, the long side will be 1 meter. The short side is also 1 meter. I think that's also, you click on OK. And with one click on column base type 1, we are done with column base type 1. So the total volume of excavated soil here for column base type 1 is 5.1 using the plugin. And from our previous measurement, the total volume here is 5.2. So I think the distance is not that much. The difference is not much. Okay. So after measuring our pit excavation to column base type 1, we have about 3 other items under column base type 1 since we made use of plugin. The first item here is the concrete column base, the concrete in column base. If you double click on that, what we have here, if you double click on what we have here, so as you can see, the plugin is asking for the thickness of the column base. So once you input the thickness, it will automatically measure the concrete in column base type 1 to specific. But I want us to cross check the thickness of the column base from the section. Let's cross check the thickness of column base type 1 from the section. So we'll go back to pages, bookmark. Okay, this is column section, and the thickness here is 350. The thickness here is 350, but the thickness on the schedule is 250. So we'll go with the thickness on the section. I don't know, maybe it's a typographical error also. Because you can't expect the thickness of your column base to be the same as that of the footing. It should be a little bit higher than that of the footing, or thicker than the normal foundation footing. So the thickness of our column base, according to this section, is 250. Let's go back to our plan. Okay. Takeoff summary. Concrete in column base, and we input 0.23. Then you click on OK. So with that, we have the total value of concrete in column base type 1 as 2.1 meter cube. The other item here is formwork to side of column base. Formwork to side of column base. And what this is asking here is the number of column base, which is 6, and the thickness is 0.35. Then we click on OK. So we have our formwork measured. The last item here is the reinforcement in column base. Then click on that. Oh, okay. Let's go back to our section. These are column base type 1. Column base type 1. And the reinforcement in column base, the size of reinforcement in column base is 12 mm diameter. 12 mm diameter. We have 7 numbers of 12 mm diameter, both in horizontal and vertical direction, and those reinforcements are spaced at 150 mm center to center. So back to our plugin. From this section, the size of the reinforcement in column base is 12 mm. The number of column base is 6. The bar width for 12 mm reinforcement is 0.888. 0.888. While the spacing, according to this plan, is 150. 150. Side A is 1 meter. Since our column base is 1 meter by 1 meter, side A is 1 meter. Side B is also 1 meter. The value of our bend here, let's assume 0.75. No, sorry. 0. What should we want to assume? Let's assume 0.1 as the value of bend. Then the number of bend, we have 2 bends. 2, that will be 2. Our cover will be 25 mm. That's 0.025. And the number of cover here is 2, because we have cover to both sides. I'm coming. Let me show you guys. This is the section. This part, from this point to this point, this part is the bend. The bend. So we have 2 bends. That's why I inputted 2. This bend and this bend. And we also have that space between the reinforcement and the end of the base here. The space between the reinforcement and end of the base here, that's the cover, the reinforcement cover, concrete cover to reinforcement. And we assume 25 mm. So with this, we are done with everything that have to do with column base type 1, both the excavation, the concrete in column base, the formwork, and the reinforcement. So I will leave measurement of column base type 2 and base type 3 to you guys. The process is the same. All you need to do is click on this to activate it. You input the depth, the number of column base, the length of the column base, the width of the column base, then you click on OK. And you click on one of that column base, just one. If you input 1 here as the number of column base, that means you have to click on the whole column base. Take for instance, if I'm to measure column base type 2 now, and I input 1 here, that means I have to click on every column or every BT2 I have on this plan. I have to click on all of them, every column base type 2. You click on them one after the other. But if you input the total number of that column base type here, what you need to do is just click on one of the column base, and with that, it automatically measure the whole excavation to that particular type of column base. Okay, so the next item I wanted to measure here is our imported filling, imported sand fill. So the default thickness here is 300, but in some case the thickness might be 150 or 200 depending on the drawing. or the structural engineer specification. So, but for this particular plan, let's assume the thickness of our sand field as 150 mm. So you input the thickness of your sand field here, then you click on OK. So what we're going to do now is I will trace the internal space in the foundation, the internal space, the whole internal space. So once you trace the whole internal space, with that, you automatically measured the imported sand field. You can see that with the use of plugin, your measurement is faster and easier. Ctrl Z. Let's start from this point. The internal space here is the distance from, I'm coming, let me deactivate this. The internal space here is the distance from this end of this, the end of this starter column to the end of this starter column, to this point and to this point. That's the internal space here. Because what we have here is block wall, and this part here is a starter column. We have another block wall here, a starter column, block wall, starter column, block wall. So the internal space is the space between those starter columns, from this point to this point, down to this point, and lastly to this point. That's the internal space. So let's measure our imported sand field. 150. So once you are done with a space and you want to measure another space, what you just do is you click on N. So the internal space here is from this point down to this point, to this point, then to this point. Let's trace that. Then this point down to this point, down to this point, and lastly, you can see that the software is predicting the point automatically because I've measured something here before now. That's the block wall gap. So since it's automatically predicting that point and that's not the right point, you can turn off that prediction by clicking on the snap here. Snap at the bottom. Snap. So if you switch off the snap, it won't predict the points for you again. Okay. So I'm going to click on escape here. I'll end my measurement here. Escape. So with this, I'm through with my imported filling. So let's take a look at the list of items under our takeoff summary. Okay, so under imported filling, we have 1, 2, 3, we have 4 items here under imported filling. The first one is hardcore filling. So you double click on that and you input the thickness. Let's use 0.15. 0.15. Leveling and compacting, automatically measured. DPM to bed, automatically measured. BRC mesh, automatically measured. But something is wrong with the DPM and BRC mesh. Since what we trace here is the internal space, then the total area of our BRC mesh and our damp-proof membrane will be the total internal space here too. But in the actual sense, our BRC mesh should be from the external parts of the building down that way. It will cover the whole block wall in the building. Our imported filling will not cover the block wall, but our BRC mesh and our damp-proof membrane will cover the block wall. So we are going to remeasure our BRC mesh and our damp-proof membrane using our area 2, with the aid of our area 2. So let's measure our BRC mesh and our damp-proof membrane again using these two. So let's rename this as DPM. Okay. So the BRC mesh to the area we just measured will be something like this. It will be something like this. So that's what the area will look like. Although the BRC mesh and damp-proof membrane will cover the whole building, not this part alone. So it will go this way, down this way, to this point, this point, down to this point, and lastly to this point. So that's our BRC mesh, and the value of our BRC mesh and our damp-proof membrane will be the same. So what I'm going to do is just copy and paste. Let me delete this. This is not correct. Then we'll copy and paste this. Copy, paste. Do you want to copy the digitizer point? Click on yes. Then you double click on this again and rename this as BRC mesh. So we'll stop here. In our next video, we'll measure other item of work in substructure. We're going to measure our starter column. We'll measure reinforcement in starter column, formwork to starter column. We'll measure our concrete slab, which is the oversight concrete, and formwork to oversight concrete. See you in the next video.